Being born post-abortion, I was born with the inherent feeling of I shouldn't be here. It was paralyzing because I shut down as a teenager after I was molested, so I didn't pick up anything after that. And I sat there and I was frozen. I thought, what the heck? Many nights I would drive across the bridge thinking, if I go down there, nobody would miss me. But when we were told you can't go out, you're not allowed to go out, something happened on the inside of me. It's like a little 2-year-old whammy happened. All of the suppressed anger, the emotions, but we don't realize that the trauma that we go through is our training. That is our training ground, right? Otherwise, those feelings, if we don't acknowledge them, they will eventually erupt and you can do some serious damage to others.
We've got to accept what happened. We can acknowledge the way we're feeling.
Acknowledge it.
And then we've got to...
And then learn to process it.
Process it.
I've got groups, creativity groups. So I've got space where we can just sit and create and chat. It's about connecting with people, right? But one thing that I've realized is God won't heal what we won't acknowledge.
Yeah.
I've got a heart for everyone. It's about love and compassion, and I cannot do that on my own. I depend on Christ for that.
Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Today we're diving into a transformative story of hope and personal growth. It's about restoring joy and faith through creativity, the journey of healing hearts and transformation. Today we're joined by Patrizia Schwartz, a mixed media artist and a healer whose life is to mend broken hearts and transform lives through faith, creativity and community support. Inspired by her own struggles with depression and trauma, Patrizia uses art to convey messages of God's love and healing. Situated in the intersection of creativity and spiritual restoration, her teachings and workshops provide a sanctuary for those seeking solace and renewal. Let's delve into how Patrizia and her journey and her artistic expression offer new pathways of joy and healing. Welcome, Patrizia, to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your journey in life, like from childhood, leading, your teenage years and adulthood, and what brings you to this point of where we are today.
Well, what brought me to this point is being born post-abortion. I was born with the inherent feeling of I shouldn't be here. And I was taking up someone else's space, my little brother. That was between my eldest brother and myself. So I have had this whole struggle of, for most of my life, I shouldn't be here. And obviously, because of the expectations, my whole life expectation was nobody loves me, nobody cares. Nobody's going to be there for me, so everything I had to do for myself. I had to learn to fight for myself. And yes, so my whole life, at a very early age, at 6 years old, lots of displacement trauma. We moved a lot. In the first 4 years of my life, I found out we'd already moved. So by the time we moved to South Africa, that was already move number 5. Back in those days, there was no Facebook, there was no... I don't remember we had phones back then yet. So moving to South Africa was like fresh start, everything new. And by the time I was 6, I had made the decision that friendships and relationships don't last. So I wasn't going to try anymore. So I spent most of my life as the outsider looking in. 12 schools later, by the time I was 19, I stopped counting at moving 34 times. So all of that compounded over the years, and it increased the not fitting in because it was just not worthwhile, right? Making friends wasn't worth my while because you're always the new kid on the block. And I'd given up. It was just too complicated. And with all of that, I have had a struggle because I felt that I shouldn't be here. There's always been that struggle with depression, but it was high functional. I only recognized that I had depression after my first miscarriage, that there was an issue, because I was still functioning, but I was busy, always doing, always serving, always helping. So I was burying all my pain, and all my trauma was being buried under this busyness and doing, and suppressed pain.
Yeah.
But we do know also that suppressed pain that we don't deal with, it becomes like a volcano later on,
Comes
right?
back up. Yeah.
It eventually does come back up. And for me, it did come back. It started surfacing with my first miscarriage. I had 2 more in between my 2 boys. So I had 2 miscarriages, my eldest, and then I had 2 more, and then I had my youngest. And by that time, I started to crack. So I was back then on antidepressants. My doctor put me on, with my first miscarriage, put me on antidepressants for a year. And that was the first, and then I really became suicidal. I really didn't want to live. But I managed to suppress it again, and I went on. A couple of decades later, we moved to New Zealand because I always felt like nobody cares anyway. So I'm a loner in South Africa, and I may as well be a loner in New Zealand. It wouldn't make a difference, right? But back then, I had still had the opportunity to go and visit family and friends. We don't have really close relationships with most of my family. My brother at that point hadn't spoken to me when he messaged me the first time after 30 years in 2017. So that was a long time. He would walk out the door when I came in. So to that extent, because of stories he'd been told. So he ignored me. He wanted nothing to do with me. And that for me was the biggest probably wounding in my life, is the fact that my brother, and I always felt like if my mom and dad and my brother don't love me, what's the point, right? I'm worthless. So that's been my struggle, and that's been my expectation. And those have been my judgments. And then we came to New Zealand in 2014, we moved. And I started struggling. At that point, we took in a young adult friends of ours, son, who came to live with us. He was with us for 3.5 years. And at some point, we also had my eldest back then was 18, and he had a girlfriend, and she just had a little baby. And she couldn't look after herself. She wasn't well. And the wounded in me saw the wounded in her, and I wanted to help. So we took her in, and the little baby, and we took them in as a daughter and a grandchild in the house. And of course, it became really triggering, because when you try and help people, when you're still wounded, those things that you've buried all your life start surfacing. And that's what happened for me then. And took 22 years before Clive realized. He suddenly noticed something was off, and he said to me, you need to go and find yourself something to do. Because I was home alone. I mean, I was home most days. My boys were now grown. Clive was working, and when he came home, he'd sit and watch videos on his phone, and I'd just basically be home, right? I hadn't made any friends yet. It took me about 5 years before I made friends here in New Zealand, before I started reaching out, when I started going to church. Eventually, I came across, I always used to love singing, and when I was young, I wanted to become a singer, but I always felt I'm not good enough, right? So that's been the story of my life. I'm not good enough. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll join the Greater Auckland Chorus. They're a competition choir, Sweet Adeline's competition choir. So I joined the Greater Auckland Chorus. It took me 6 attempts to pass the audition, because I'd sing on the rises, I'd be fine, and the moment they say, come Trixie, do your audition, I freeze up. I used to get serious audition anxiety, and I'd fail my audition, because I straight away went, and after 6 attempts, I finally did it. And I spent 3 years with them and rigorous training and everything else. I still couldn't pass the auditions. I struggled to pass the auditions for the competitions still after that. But then eventually, with the first try at the church audition, I managed that one. So I did the choir for another 3 years. And then, of course, COVID happened. And by then, in 2017, I hit rock bottom. And a friend invited me to join her for a graphics design course. And I mean, I hadn't done any creative ventures in years. And our first assignment was just to create a simple drawing. And I froze. I was paralyzing because I shut down as a teenager after I was molested. So I didn't pick up anything after that. And I sat there and I was frozen. I thought, what the heck? But I did a little search on my photos, and I found a photo of our dog. She happened to be Trixie. And I tried this. And then to my astonishment, I actually looked at, okay, it actually does look like her. So for me, that was a small victory. And it was the start of reigniting my creative ability. So I started drawing more, and I started realizing that it was helpful. So, I mean, Greater Auckland Chorus, the 3 hours every Tuesday at crossing the bridge and singing, those 3 hours would get me from week to week, because by then I was really suicidal. I mean, up many nights I would drive across the bridge thinking, if I go down there, nobody would miss me. But I kept doing my Greater Auckland Chorus, but then I was starting to draw, and then there was the next struggle was painting. And I always used to say, I can't paint. It's not good enough. So 1 year, this was just before COVID, I joined an art group at one of the local churches. And she kept on saying to me, because she'd seen some of my stuff that I'd done before, and she kept on saying, if you can do this, because at that point in time I was doing coloring and Bible journaling. So I had my Bible. I would sit while they sit and paint. I'd sit with my Bible journal and I'd sit and color my Bible journal. She said, but if you can do this, you can paint. So eventually I did try and paint. I did a simple flower. She looked at it and she said, see, I told you can do this. And that was when painting started. That's when I started painting. So it's been a journey. During COVID lockdowns I just had about a year of overcoming depression, because God miraculously, just the night before my birthday in 2019, he delivered me. I was watching a online sermon, and while the prayer was happening, I just felt this heaviness lift. But what hadn't happened was the wounding hadn't been healed. So I went from busyness in other areas. I went into the church, serving in the choir, serving here, doing this, doing all of this. So taking one false refuge, one thing that made me feel better, and replacing. It's like taking smoking, giving up smoking, and picking up cigarettes instead, because the need for the smoking is not necessary. It's the trauma that hasn't been dealt with, right? And that's basically what I did. I replaced the depression with being busy and religion and being busy in church. But then when COVID came, and I always used to say, I'm a house mouse by nature, right? But when we were told you can't go out, you're not allowed to go out, something happened on the inside of me. It's like a little 2-year-old whammy happened. All of the suppressed anger, the emotions. Sandra always says when we do it with the Healing Trauma teaching series, she says, when there's this little situation, but your response is this big, there's something there. And I realized that there was something there, because everything amplified, exploded. I was totally without it. And I was actually heading back into depression. I was starting to feel like I can't do this. And then I got an email. I was doing intercession for cleansing streams at the time. So the leader from the cleansing streams was sent us an email, and she said, trauma training was the heading. And I went, okay, Mrs. Fix-It. I used to be called Mrs. Fix-It at my previous job because just fix it. And she said in the email, if you're wanting to help people, here's an opportunity to learn how to help people deal with trauma and all of that stuff. And I went, okay, for decades, if you'd asked me, what is your purpose? That scripture in Isaiah 61, verse 1-4, heal the brokenhearted, bind their wounds, take the healing. And that song, I don't know if you know the song, Take My Healing to the Nations. It's an old one. But that song would pop up and I go, okay, but I'm too broken. I can't do this. I need to fix myself. So for a good 30 years, I've known what I was meant to be doing. But I've resisted because I felt too broken. I felt inadequate. And I hadn't been trained right. But we don't realize that the trauma that we go through is our training. That is our training ground, right?
It is, absolutely.
So obviously, that's been the journey. And so then this email popped up and I went, okay, I'll sign up for trauma training. What have I got to lose? At least I'll be equipped, right? And then as the sessions unfolded, I sat there and I found myself in tears and wait, I'm the one that needs the healing here. And that's basically that was my turning point. Because I had, Sandra spoke at the end of the session, if you have issues, if you have had wounding with leadership, and I mean most of it's feeling rejected by mom and dad, feeling rejected by the church leadership, teachers, and my whole history has been rejection and abandonment and feeling betrayed. So I figured, well, I'll sign up for prayer ministry, because she said, then sign up for prayer ministry. And I signed up for prayer ministry, and the first thing she did as she sat down, she said to me, okay, so I've signed you up, because she does a long history questionnaire with what are your issues, what have you dealt with? And she said, I've put you down for 3 days. That's 3 days in a row, 3 hours a day of prayer ministry. And I went, I didn't have a no back then. And I went, okay. I thought it was going to be 3 hours, but I ended up doing 3 days. And that's basically when all of the buried stuff started dealing with the decisions we make. My decision that I shouldn't be here. The lies that I came to believe, because I've expected that I shouldn't be here and people will always reject me. So I've experienced a whole lot of rejection because of those expectations. We know how it goes. The things we fear, we draw.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience. Rejection, abandonment, all of those things, because I've made those judgments that people won't love me, people don't care.
Yeah.
Because I felt that.
Yeah. And the more we live in that mold of like, this is who I am and this is what's happening to me, then it's going to continue, right? It's a pattern.
Yeah.
And, what we hear from like the stories we tell ourselves, like you said before, something that happened could be this big, but what we do is the response is a massive story that we've created. Now, how much truth is in that story? Maybe majority of it is probably not even true.
A lot of it is possibly perception.
Exactly. And we hold on to these thoughts and these emotions, and that's what trauma is. I was listening to a podcast, I think it was, where Dr. Gabor Mate was saying that the situation was traumatic. Absolutely, it was traumatic. But the staying in that situation, so being emotionally connected to that, even like 30 years later, that's what keeps you in there, right? And he said that the way to break out of that is to be authentic. Authenticity is what's going to break you out of that, because when you're born, you're the purest form. And then I have this analogy. There's a model that we used in the coaching called the core, the crud, and the crust. And the core is when you're first born, you're the purest form, and it's a little circle where you're pure self. Then over time, as things happen, we start to build the crud over the top of it, right? And then we decide that, okay, I don't want to show the world all my
Hide.
yeah, I want to hide it behind. So what we do is we build a little crust. So if you imagine a window that's smudged with all that crud, and then we just cover it up with a piece of paper or something, because we don't want to show the room, or you close the door because you don't want to see people see the messy room.
Yeah.
That's what happens in our lives.
You shut down and you shut people out. And
Exactly.
That's basically, and I built walls. I always used to joke. I said, it's not just a wall. There's a fortress. There's a wall. There's a fence. There's a, you name it. It's like Fort Knox. That's what I built around my heart.
Exactly. And if you don't open yourself up to God or to
people can't come in if you lock yourself up like that. And the reality is, you go, nobody loves me because nobody can get in.
Yeah.
I'm the one that built the walls. I'm the one that hardened my heart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I'm also the one that believed the lie that nobody cares because nobody came to find me behind my walls.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I can imagine that it probably would bring up memories, and it's not an easy thing to do, to share your experiences with, especially with the world, right?
Yes, but one thing that I've realized is God won't heal what we won't acknowledge.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm not willing to share and put it out there, He won't heal it.
Exactly.
And that's why we share our stories.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because ultimately, we win.
Absolutely.
When we share and we overcome.
Yeah.
By doing that.
Absolutely. Would you share with the listeners your personal experience that has shaped your passion for integrating faith and healing?
For me, it's been the fact that I've spent it's been about 6 years now, the last 6 years since I've started singing, dancing, drawing, painting. So every one of those lives, I mean, I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't write, and I can't speak. Those 6 have been predominant in my life.
Wow.
And I can't do any of those things because I'm not good enough. And for me, it has also been easier to say I can't do it than to acknowledge that behind that is the fear that what I do is not going to be accepted. People may reject it. They may not like it. So it's easier to say we can't do it. And many of us do that because we're afraid of what people are going to think of what we're doing. So it's easy. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And my journey since Greater Auckland Chorus, that was breaking the singing one. Then we did the drawing one, was with Media Design School. Then we had the painting one at North Cross at the church. Dancing came for years. I mean, it took me about 2 years. I'd stand in church during worship and I'd see myself in my mind's eye. I could see myself moving and dancing and running and doing all of those moves, but I couldn't move my feet. I was stuck. I just couldn't. The best I could do is lift my hands in worship, and that's the best I could do. But it took me 2 years, and eventually, finally, as I dealt with all of the inner vows, all of the judgments, all of the lies, and it's been layer upon layer upon layer. Every time I think, oh, just finished this, some more overcoming in an area, and then it's like God says to me, wait, there's more. And then there's another one, and then another one. This last year has been one on the other. And finally, we've done the dancing, and then of course, I've had sharing my story. So many people would say to me, "You should write a book," and I go, "I can't write a book. No, no, I can't write a book. Can't do that." And there we go again. I mean, I actually attended the boot camp, the speakers boot camp, because I mean, sharing the story, speaking publicly for me has always been an issue. I don't want to speak to too many people. I'm fine on the one-on-one. I can do that. But public, no ways. So anyway, so I joined Speakers Bootcamp last year. This year I did the bootcamp because I had this, I can't speak, but it came from, it was an inner, it was a stronghold really. It was so cemented in me that I can't speak. And interestingly, my brother mentioned to me a couple of months ago, he said to me, when we were young, when we would speak to my stepdad, he would always say, think before you speak. Every time I opened my mouth, think before you speak. 12 years of that. I got stuck thinking. I never spoke again. I never spoke. I mean, I can have these massive conversations. I have these awesome conversations with people in my head. But when I've got to speak up, it's like, it's all gone.
Yeah, because you were constantly speaking to, talking, like thinking about stuff, and then you're probably going, well, if I say this, what are people going to say?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Think before you speak. That's where I got stuck. So it's been, boot camp was, wow. It's like, I can't even tell you the amount of inner turmoil, because there's those inner vows that we make, right? Yeah. I won't speak because my expectation is people aren't going to like what I say, so I just won't speak. And I mean, asking questions. I was little asking questions, and questions got shut down and they got you in trouble. So I didn't ask questions. I didn't speak. So I was stuck in my brain. I'll have these conversations and nothing will come up. When you ask me a question, I mean, I have that with Elias all the time. He asks me a question. I go, got no questions. And then I get home and I go, I should have asked this, and I should have said this, and I should have this, and I have those conversations again. But then when I'm one-on-one, I go again.
Yeah.
So that's been my story.
Yeah.
And I fought that battle with it was intense. I mean, I stood on Friday morning. We were supposed to do our 6-minute presentation on Friday morning for the first time, the first rehearsal. And I got up early. And I stood up in front of the window. I thought, okay, there's the crowd now. And suddenly I was in tears. My stomach was in a knot. I felt like I was being crushed, and I was crying for 2 hours. Eventually I stood there. I couldn't, because I knew my speech off by heart. I knew every word. But when I stood there, eventually I stood there, and Clive came down about 2 hours later, and he's thinking, what's going on? Because he sees me from the back standing like this with my arms. He says, touches me, he says, what's going on? And as I turned around, and I just lost it all. Because it was so intense and so overwhelming that having to speak out loud in front of people I don't know. I mean, I've met, this is 15 participants, all strangers. Didn't know anybody from a bar of soap. And now I'm sharing my story. And I'm needing to share my story. And I'm going, but God, I can't do this. How do I do this? But yeah, the feisty in me came out, and we just pushed it through. And one of the reviews that I got was, I like how you just keep fighting. You're pushing. I can see you pushing. And I just realized I need to get over this.
And I want to congratulate you, because I saw your video on Facebook, I think it was, and yeah, you did really well. You were confident. Maybe you were a little bit nervous, but you did really well. So yeah,
he challenged us to do that video, and I'm telling you, I said, if I don't do this, I still haven't watched it myself, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And I just went, okay. Eventually, because I tried to do the selfie version, and I just couldn't. And then I got one of the participants. I said, just stand there, hold the video for me, and I'll talk to you. So that's how I overcame that one. Is I spoke to the guy behind the camera, and I ignored the camera.
Exactly.
That's how I managed to get that one done.
Well done. Yeah. And with your story of healing, how are you helping people through the journey of healing?
I have got 4 ways that I'm doing at the moment. I've got groups, creativity groups. It's just a space where you can come, you can sit and you can create. I've got a studio at my house. A landlady was kind enough to build me a studio. So I've got space where we can just sit and create and chat. It's about connecting with people, right? It's creating a space where they feel they belong, building relationships, and allowing them to speak up, because we all need to be heard. One of our basic needs is to be heard. And they say being heard is so close to being loved that very few people know the difference.
Yeah.
And it's creating a space where people can come and they can voice what's going on inside. And creativity is an expression of what's inside, right? It gives us that opportunity to express what's going on inside our hearts. And it allows us in that way also to heal. So it's one. The other thing that I do, and I've been doing for the last 3 years, is at our church, once a month on the 3rd Saturday, we do what I call a community paint party. I've got a painting for the month, and I'll stand up, teach you how to do this painting, and in between, I'll be on the floor and we'll have chats, and also an opportunity for building relationships, especially for those that come on a regular basis. I've got a couple people that keep coming back. And it's actually meant to, so many of us think we're not creative. It's a space where people can come and just try. If I pick up a paintbrush, what happens? And I have had people come in there that said, I've never painted before, that walk out there with some of the most amazing paintings. I had a lady that came with me, a friend of mine. She came to my house because she didn't finish hers in the 2 hours. So I said, no, come to my house and we'll finish it off. And she was doing a barn painting. And when she finished it, I picked it up and I held it at a distance, because paintings look different when you step away from them. And I held it at the distance, and she started to cry. And she said to me, Trixie, I don't know, why am I crying? I said, because you did not know you had that in you. And everybody has that in them. Because as a 3-year-old, what did we do? Little toddlers. We all painted, we sung, we danced.
Yeah.
We painted, we drew, did all of those things. But why did we stop? For most of us, we went to school. Teacher says, that's not how it's supposed to look. That tree doesn't look like my tree. So for many of us, that was one of the reasons. Or what we did wasn't acknowledged. Mom and dad didn't pay any attention to what we were doing. My mom and dad were never home. They were always working. So there wasn't anybody to pay attention to what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right? So for many of us, there's that wounding. And we hide that because we shut down that ability. We shut down creativity. And it's not really encouraged unless you're exceptionally gifted in the world.
Yeah.
When someone picks up, oh yes, you're exceptionally gifted, then it gets encouraged. But oftentimes it doesn't. For those of us that draw occasionally, paint occasionally, because it's like any skill, daily practice makes you good at it.
Yeah. Builds competence, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And for many have lost that because they shut down, and now I think I can't draw a stick figure.
Yeah.
And I've seen people come out of my paintings, and I mean, she drew the most beautiful barn. She didn't know she could do that. And that's the other way I do. And then the other thing that I do is we've got a weekly encounter group. I call them encounter groups. We based on the healing trauma teaching series from Selma Kirsten. So we watch the videos, and it's all about how we recognize our own responses to trauma, because that's what keeps us trapped, right?
Absolutely.
It's not what happens to us, it's how I respond. When I make those vows, when I have those expectations, I make those judgments, and I have those vows, I will not let people in because that keeps me trapped in rejection because I'm pushing people away, right? So about discovering those judgments and vows, because for many of us, those are hidden. We make those as little children sometimes, and we don't know we've made those vows.
Yeah.
And those things keep us trapped in trauma. So it's about discovering those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with that also we do prayer ministry. So that's basically.
Thank you for that. So you've just been talking about your artwork, and we've got one of these pieces here. So it not only pleases the eye, but it also touches the soul. What goes into creating a piece that's meant to heal a heart?
For many of my paintings that I've done are paintings based on my own experience. So it's a word that I have received during prayer ministry, or someone comforting me in some way, shape, or form. And then I'll turn that in order to remember. In the past, I used to struggle very badly with memory, so I wouldn't remember things. And I don't have many childhood memories either, for the same reason, because I've buried everything. So we can't selectively bury the memories we don't like. When we use memory, forgetting, as a refuge, a way to try and process pain, then everything goes. The good and the bad memories goes, which is why probably the little bit that I remember is bad, but I also don't remember the good. There may have been good, but I don't remember it.
Because the bad was so painful.
It was too painful, and I've buried everything. So the little bit of good I wouldn't remember. So I started painting these so that I could remember the words that I've received. But as I've gone with my experiences with others, many people have got similar woundings. And I found that word or that painting that I've created for me to remember can bring some healing to someone else. So I've gifted some of those paintings to someone else dealing with something similar, in order to encourage and bring some hope in that area as well.
Yeah. Let's walk through this painting that we've got here. I'm just going to put this up on the table so that people can see. Could you tell us a little bit about this painting and what was the story behind it?
This painting is, it's a dream that I had when I was just shortly after I came to Christ. I must have been about 19. I dreamt I saw myself on like what's left of some cracks of the world. I saw myself standing on like a little rock, and the world, everything around me was starting to crack apart. It was like big. You couldn't get to anyone. You'd see people being dispersed, and you'd see the cracks coming between all of these people. So buildings were starting to break up and collapse, and I woke up feeling really intensely terrified. It was a nightmare, really, not just a dream, but I felt terrified. And I had heard an audible voice, and this is what woke me up, and it wasn't Afrikaans, but it said, "You must continue to pray." And I woke up, and I hadn't thought about it for many years because life happened, and of course there was no time to really think about all of these things. And then during COVID, when we were in lockdown, and especially when the pressure came with the vaccines, and the people were starting to, the one against the other, and families against families, and all of this started to happen. It
was a dividing time, wasn't it?
That was, there was so much separation and anger and division. It resurfaced. And I picked up my tablet and I started to paint it. So it's a digital painting I did. It's not a physical one, it's digital. And I painted, and that's basically, and it's about, it signifies really that as people, as humans, when we're divided, we are weaker.
Yeah.
A house that's divided will not stand, the Bible says. And we've had families divided. I mean, we've got generations of families that have been divided over the years and over the decades. And with that, it really amplified the whole division. Your team, you've got the vaccine, you don't have it. That division. And it was really, for me, that was traumatizing.
Yeah, and it happened in the workplaces too. Like, I mean, I was working at Auckland Transport, which is a local government, and part of working in local government, it was mandatory. You had to get it done, and it's like a lot of people lost their jobs because they wouldn't get vaccinated.
Yeah. And even in the churches where you had this separation in the churches. And I mean, my husband and I, coming from South Africa, we back in the, was it 90s, early 90s, when there was the referendum about the apartheid in South Africa, we were the youngsters that voted against apartheid, right? And coming to New Zealand and experiencing that, we actually ended up, for church, our church implemented the vaccine passport. And for us, that was a dividing line. We ended up leaving the church for that reason, because we had a little group of unvaccinated people. And in that group, there were people that couldn't go to their life groups anymore because either the husband or the wife or the children weren't vaccinated. So the families couldn't go where they wanted to where anymore. So we had a group of at least 20 people. Our own life group separated because half was vaccinated and other half wasn't. And that is the division that this speaks about, is the fact that we are actually, as a human race, we're all one. We're one body.
We're built for community.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
That's why we get depressed when we shove ourselves, when
we lock ourselves away.
We lock ourselves away and we feel unloved and nobody cares. And we forget that we're the ones that actually built those walls in the first place.
Yeah. And it's our perceptions of how we perceive someone else, how they are, and they might just be having a bad day themselves. But then we go make up a story and go, oh, that person's doing this to me.
Oh, he's ignoring me because he's not saying hello to me.
Look,
he may have not seen me.
I've been there, done that so many times. And looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, how silly was that?
I mean, if I'm thinking about it now, I mean, yes, my brother did reach out about 7 years ago just before I hit rock bottom. He reached out to reconcile. And I know there was a lot of lies, but I mean, how much of what, when I went to my sister's place and he may have just been on his way home already anyway. But my perception would be, oh, I just got here, now my brother's leaving. I'm walking into the kitchen and now my brother's leaving. It may have been true, but some of it may not have been true.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
It may not have been as bad as what I thought it was.
Let's talk a little bit about building a supportive community and how we've just been talking about community. So let's talk about it, building that supportive community and how it's central to your mission, and what's essential to creating that safe space for creative healing.
I think the first thing that is essential for that is a safe environment, trust, building relationships, and for me, authenticity. I've realized in this, I mean, I've been doing my encounter groups for about 3 years now, but it took me about 1.5 years. And I would always share my victories, my overcoming, but very seldom in the group did I share where I was at now. So what happened in 2023, we were doing an online webinar on healing the hearts of the children. And during the sessions, I could feel the stirring, and there was triggers and there was wounding that was coming up. But as the leader, I felt I'm the leader here. I should be. And I had that with a pastor back in South Africa when I needed some help, and he said, "But you're a cell group leader. You should be beyond this." And so I was struggling with this. I should be beyond this. I'm the leader here. But then eventually I broke down. I just couldn't anymore. I mean, there was a prayer that happened, a prayer of blessings, mom and dad's blessings, and I just ended up crying. And I have these 8 people around me, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, Lord, I shouldn't be crying. I'm the leader here. And eventually I just gave up. And I allowed these guys to pray for me. And the dynamics changed of the group after I did that, because finally I was able to allow them to see the me that is also struggling, that I don't have it all together. There are areas where I've overcome, but there are still areas that I need work. But there's also, I need help and support. So getting to that space where I could acknowledge that I need help and allowing them to do what I'm doing for them.
Yeah.
Because building trust often is about allowing others to help you as well.
Absolutely. Now, nowadays there's a lot of diversity around people, and some people will be thinking, well, because your mission is around God and church and so on, and they might be feeling like, oh, I don't really fit into that mold or that group. How do you keep your groups welcoming and inclusive for everyone?
I've got a heart for everyone. It's about loving people to life, really. It's about love and compassion, and I cannot do that on my own. I depend on Christ for that, because with my journey, I've had to learn to love. I mean, I have not been a person that would hug a lot. And God has used my husband in that area I'm a hugger. But what I've also realized is a lot of the stuff that I am now, I'm discovering what I really am. Because everything that I wanted to be is what I am, but it's been suppressed. So I've lived my life trying to be for people who I think they need me to be, or who I think they want me to be, which meant suppressing me.
Yeah.
The one that loves people. I've got a passion for people, yet I push them away. I'm generous, but I hide. All of those. So and that's part of depression, really, right? Because you're trying to be what you're not, and that is really hard work.
And that's the imposter comes in, right? Because you feel bad about it, because it's like you're not being your authentic self.
Yes, this is not who I am.
And when you're not authentic, you're like, well, absolutely you're being an imposter, right? And it's not until you start ripping those sheets of paper off the window and cleaning your window to see clearly through into the purity of who you are.
Yeah.
Because still within us, there is a pure sense of our childhood there. It's just that we've clouded it, and it's like chipping away.
Been buried.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, not all of the crust is bad, because some of it is there to protect us.
Yes.
But then some of it is, and what it comes down to is people don't know, or they're not good at setting boundaries. They don't look after.
That's a big wounding in so many of us, and it starts in childhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
When our no is not validated and our no is not acknowledged,
Yeah.
and we're not taught to have that no.
Yeah, and your self-esteem is made up of your needs, your emotions, and your boundaries. And so if you're not setting healthy boundaries, if you're not looking after your needs, and if you're not connecting with your emotions, then it's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
Right? So
We've lived it.
Exactly. And like you, I've been through a lot of trauma and have had to do that work and chip away at the stuff to be able to see my authentic and pure self and go, that's not me. This
is who you are.
This is who I am.
Yes.
And it's a liberating experience. I encourage anyone, if you're watching this, I encourage you, if you're feeling like you're an imposter, if you're feeling that you're not worthy, I encourage you to sit with yourself and really go within, zoom out of your body and look within and actually observe what are your patterns, what do you do, and start to then look within, because everything you want and all the answers that you want are within you.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because who you are created to be is there.
Absolutely.
It's just been buried.
Absolutely.
It's about, Sandra shares the story about the statue of David, how he was made. And I mean, he started with this big rock. And how did you create that? And the answer was, I just looked at this stone and I started chipping away of everything that does not look like David. And that's what we've got to do.
Exactly.
All of those facades that we put, that I'm fine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who has used that?
Yeah.
I'm the master of I'm fine.
Yeah.
And very few people, I mean, I look at people these days when I look at a smile and I go, I'm waiting for that smile to reach the eyes. Because the eyes are the window. And
Exactly.
I've mastered the smile that doesn't reach the eyes.
Yeah.
It's about getting to that stage where you heal to that extent that when you can say, yes, I'm not really doing that well today. Being honest. For me, fine was freaked out, emotional, neurotic. One of those acronyms. That was fine. And that's what fine is for many people.
Yeah.
Being authentic. That's a lie that we believe, right? That's a lie that we try and let other people believe.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
we're fine. And we don't have to always be fine. It's okay to acknowledge when things are not going well.
It's okay to, whatever you're feeling, whatever emotion you've got, it's okay to feel that way. And the more you sit with that emotion, the more you're healing your inner child. The more you're healing that child self of 2 years old, or for me, it was a 5 and 7 year old. And the more you sit with it and acknowledge it and tell your child self, it's okay. We're going to get through
Feelings are valid.
what are you feeling is fine.
But it's about
okay.
learning to express those feelings in a way that it won't end up hurting someone else. Otherwise, those feelings, if we don't acknowledge them, they will eventually erupt and you can do some serious damage to others.
We've got to accept what happened. We could acknowledge the way we're feeling.
Acknowledge it.
And then we've got to...
And then learn to process it.
Process it and regulate yourself. Whether it's breathing, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer.
Painting, creativity is awesome for that. It's absolutely I mean, I've heard of people that go bake when they don't feel, when they need to express something. You can go bake or go get busy in the garden, do some cooking.
Yeah. So, I mean, I go for walks, but even recording a podcast, to me, this is for me therapy, because it's like I learn so much from hearing someone else's experience, right? And often we're like with blinkers on, and we only worry about ourselves, but we don't really listen and learn from other people. And the more we become lifelong learners and be able to learn from what other people have been through, and how we can then take lessons from that. I think that is key to. You're constantly got to be learning and adapting and pivoting and really being one with yourself.
And also being the value of community, really.
Community, absolutely.
We absolutely don't realize. I mean, society has taught us everybody for himself, right?
Yeah. And we're here at the...
But community.
We're here at the Crate. The Crate is a co-working space here in Albany, and the Crate sponsors this podcast by offering the space to record the podcast. Now, if I'm sitting at home and working, I'm not part of a community.
Yep.
I'm part of my own community. But here, I can have conversations with many people on different levels, and
you can learn from each other.
Exactly, and helps you grow as a person as well. Yeah. You've witnessed many transformations. Can you share, please, a particular impactful story and how that defines success in your workshops and mentoring as well?
So for me, success is seeing a transformation and a healing happen. It's seeing the light come on, really. As with my own journey, having the lifeless eyes. I mean, I look at photos and I go, there's no life in those eyes. And you see that in people. So many people are merely existing. And with the painting, even with I do intercession at the Elijah House schools on a regular basis, and we'll have people that are struggling through things, and you just see that light bulb moment when they realize, but listen, this is who I am, and I'm not alone in this, and there's people around us that can support us through these things. Because I think that is our biggest struggle, is we think we're on our own.
Yeah.
There's nobody else. We've been so separated and so conditioned that it's just you. We don't realize. I mean, the first time I realized that there are people struggling with depression was the first time when I posted on my Facebook group and on my Facebook page and said, this is where I'm at. The first time I started being open, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm struggling with. And I got the replies, yes, me too. And I'm in people as young as 12, 16 years old, youngsters. I mean, I struggled my whole life. But having people realizing that we're not alone in our struggle is one of the biggest impacts in driving that change.
Yeah.
Recognizing that there are people that care, there are people that are willing to help and support me through these things. That for me is the driving force behind what I do. Is so that people can know that they're not alone.
Absolutely. Well, Patrizia, we are at the quickfire questions now. So there's 6 questions, and I love what you've shared today. It's there's been some similarities in my journey as well, and I really hope that the audience can get a lot out of this and be able to move forward in their journey as well, and heal. First question I have is for you, and you kind of touched on this in the last question, is how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Success for me is being able to help others, to add value to others, to see healing and transformation. I think what brings me the greatest joy is when I have someone that says I'm not creative, and they come and they do a painting. I mean, I had a lady not so long ago, she's older lady, and she said, I hate art. I was doing a paint party for the seniors at the church. They had a Wednesday morning session, and she said, I hate art, but she ended up, we had a couple of people and we needed one more to sit with the one person in the back that was on his own. And the other lady says, you go. And she said, but I hate art. And they said, you go, you do your painting. And the feedback afterwards, she says, I loved it. That is what makes it worthwhile for me. Just seeing that transformation from going from, I hate art, because obviously there was an experience.
That's fear.
There's the fear, there was an experience,
Yeah.
and now she's had an experience that showed her, but this is actually fun.
But now she loves it.
Now she loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's success for me.
That's great. Thank you. Who's been your major influence? Who's your major influence in your life, and why?
For me, there's no two ways about it. It's been Jesus. The way he's come into my life, and he's brought healing and restoration one layer at a time.
Like an onion, isn't it?
Like an onion skin, he's peeled off, and he's not finished yet,
Yeah.
but I know that he will complete the job, and we're on our way. I mean, I'm a different person now than I was 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
And just to remind everyone that when you finish peeling the first onion, there's another onion waiting, right? So at the top of every peak of every mountain, there's another mountain to climb.
Mountain to climb.
And you're back at level 1 again.
But then at the end of the day, everything worthwhile is uphill.
Yeah.
So
Because,
keep climbing those
because the other
mountains.
thing is we only ever have the present moment, the present day. So it's almost like Groundhog Day, right? But if you're able to heal through stuff and work in your life, then every Groundhog Day is actually not the same experience. It's a different experience.
Yeah, but and every healing brings more freedom, right?
Yeah.
And it gives you more ability to do what you're doing. I mean, and you do stuff without getting so exhausted, because you start doing, your motivation for doing things change. This is what I've experienced is I still do all the things I used to do, but I don't do them to be acknowledged or accepted anymore. I do it because I love the people and I want to add value to the people and I want to make a difference.
Absolutely. You want to create an
So
impact.
it makes it less, if it makes it less exhausting.
Yeah. The next question I have for you is, I think I can guess the answer here, but what is something that you believe in that others may disagree with?
Jesus came to heal the brokenhearted and bind up their wounds. He did it for me, and he'll do it for anybody else who will allow him in.
Absolutely. If you could go back and give your young Trixie some piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't believe all those lies, and don't harden your heart and shut the people out, because you make it worse.
What's one message you want to share with the world?
My biggest message is that God wants to heal each and every one of us, but He won't do anything unless we acknowledge. He's a gentleman, and He's given us a choice and a free will. So as long as we hold on to all of those pains and aches and we think we've got to do it ourselves, there will be no healing. We need to get to that space where we can say, Lord, here, take it, you help.
And the last question, and this is a double-barrel question, is what does it mean to be a champion in your life and having a champion mindset?
Being a champion for me is walking in my purpose. It's taken a long while to get there, but finally getting to that space where, yes, for me, it's taking the healing to the nations, because that's what Jesus came to do, and that's what He tells us to do. Go, heal the sick, raise the dead. We are meant to go and do those things, and stepping out and not believing the lies and the setbacks, not let that hold us back.
Yeah.
Believing who we are, because we are beautifully and wonderfully made, right? We are loved, we are valued, and not to believe anything other than that.
And people want to connect with you and have a chat or talk about their journey. How can they do so?
They can visit me on my Facebook group and on my LinkedIn pages. And they can visit my website as well.
Okay, we'll put those links into the show notes. Well, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring journey. And we'll put all those links in so that they can connect with you. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your story. And I really hope that it helps a lot of people out there.
I hope so too.
Yeah, and for those that you're listening, if you're struggling, reach out to someone who you trust, and make sure that you're part of a community and not by yourself. Because when you're by yourself is when you go into that depression and feeling anxiety and stuff. But when you're around good people that are there to help you and guide you through your journey, then you're going to be able to conquer that, and that's why therapists, counselors, coaches, mentors, all these people exist.
Are there to help.
There to help you and help you through that journey. Just like in the sports, you'd have a coach helping you through that journey on the way to becoming a champion. Then, you could try to be a champion on your own, but no one has ever been successful on their own. And we all need a community around us to help us to celebrate with us, to encourage us, and to also keep us accountable for our actions as well.
And to pick us up when we fall, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So lastly, I just want to say to the audience and the listeners is that you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.